Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 499. Is your trust registered in the public? And this is definitely going to be a barn burner episode right here. So definitely hit the like, definitely hit the subscribe if you're new to the channel so you can get these pop-up episodes. This is one of those pop-up episodes for sure. And so definitely, just feel free to hit the like so we can always continue to get the information to others, even people in your network if you're looking into trusteeship. People entrusted with people in trust. So this is one of those episodes that's going to highlight why we're actually going over this information. So it's not legal advice, it's not financial advice. We're just having a conversation in the public with many people that are looking to endeavor to put their lives and their families in certain positions that everybody's just not privy to that information. So we're going to talk about it today in this particular episode 499. Is your trust registered in the public? And everybody wonders, says, how do you get to 400 episodes? It's like, well, first of all, we got to 400 episodes because a lot of the questions that we get in consultations, you can get a consultation at christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, that's christian@trustchristian.com. You can get one of those. We get these questions in consultation, so that's where we get. That's where this question came from. It was a little bit more simple, so we elaborated on the fact that it's in the public and that it's not theirs traditionally in our system with our trustees. They're not, but we got to address it from this perspective because a lot of trustees will still enroll into the program or people enroll into the program and they think that it's their trust. So we're just going to address it that way. Is your trust registered in the public? Especially if you've gone through trustee training. If you've gone through trustee training, you understand the language that you're speaking. If you go through trustee training, you're very aware of the words and what you're speaking. So we're going to talk about it. Is the trust, is your trust registered in the public if we're talking private? Well, let's address it. First of all, if it's a private trust, how is it registered in the public? We're gonna go ahead and address this. We got this in the question here recently. We've gotten it for years. People go through the training and they still say, well, isn't the trust registered in the public? Well, how is it private if it's registered in the public? See, this is the thing that these gurus over the internet, we can call them goofballs. They're not gurus, they're called goofballs. These guys sit over the internet, ladies and gentlemen too. They sit over the internet and they just want to tell you some information and they give you half the information. Oh, just get in a trust. They don't tell you it's public or it's private. Then when they tell you, oh, you got in a private one, where are you going to register it at? Why would a private trust register in the public if it's private? Well, it got the EIN trust, Christian involved. Didn't that register? We're going to go ahead and bust it down for y'all like we did in the consultation. So we can go ahead and when we actually have this question come up in the consultation again, guess what? We can just go ahead and refer them to the video so they can get more of an in-depth answer on what we're talking about here. Well, I got an EIN for a private trust. For what purpose? When you actually applying for an EIN or the trust is applying for an EIN, well, do you know what purpose you got it for? As a trustee? What purpose did the trust get the EIN? See, this is going to be the biggest thing. They're going to stick to this EIN thing. All the gurus and the goofballs, when they hear the episode, they're going to say, oh, well, you registered it and got an EIN. That doesn't mean that it's registered. First of all, you apply for an EIN. You don't register. Second of all, somebody can say, oh, well, can't we search public record? Does that mean it's private if you're searching public record? How's it private if you can search public record for a trust? Oh man, Trust Christian Vault, it can't be that sweet over there with you guys. So you telling me that the system is private? It's truly private? We've been saying there for years, public and private don't mix. See, when you register a company on the public side, you don't go to the Fed. You go to the state. That's how it works. But do you have a state trust? Or do you have a private trust? Because state trusts are public trusts. Private trusts are not state trust. So we're giving out consultation worth of value here at this point in the vault, 499 episodes in. We're on page 499. Is the trust registered in the public? So definitely hit the like and the subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the like so you can actually continuously get the information. Is your trust registered in the public if it's private? Oh man, we're gonna do a bunch of episodes coming up here. Oh man, I created my own trust. Oh, you did? You created your own trust. Okay. Is your trust registered in the public? Well, what rationale could you create if you say you have a private trust as a trustee? If you created a private trust, how is it public? How is it registered in the public? Just because you got an EIN, you think that means it's registered? So here's a quick example. How can someone search for that public entity, for that private entity if it's private? What, they gonna Google it? You can't Google it. How do you Google a private entity? Well, is it registered on the record? Where do I register the trust? Where do I register my private trust? If it's private, why are you registering it in the public? See, this is an easy question that we get all the time. This is actually the third lesson you get in trustee training. It's about week 3. We got a 12-week training program. It's about 3 months. That's why we used to hold our workshops every 3 months, because we would have a slew of trustees go through, and we will have workshops for them to continuously reinforce the information. Once again, if it's a private trust, why would it be registered in the public? Where is it registered at? It didn't register when it got an EIN. It applied for an EIN. For what purpose? Do we need to go to the document of why the trust may apply for an EIN? Many reasons. And once the EIN is obtained, can someone just go search the trust? What are they going to search it at? They're going to search it on public record. Well, they actually have to know the name first. So if it's private, who knows the name? Maybe the trustees, maybe the beneficiaries, maybe the parties that are involved, maybe the people that are doing business with the private entity. There are private companies operating all the time. How were they registered in the public? Just because they have an EIN. That's not the case. This isn't legal advice, financial advice. We can go cross-reference and check and talk to people that are in this sector. You can go talk to your attorneys. Hey, how's a private trust registered? Registered where? We're addressing this conversation for trustees so when they come into the vault, they can understand clearly that it's not the case. Just because it had an EIN, just because it has an EIN. Here we go. So, all right, that's like saying that a trust is not a trust because it doesn't have an EIN. Not all trusts have EINs, ladies and gentlemen. A trust is a person. That's like saying you have to have a social. Do you have to have a social to operate in the world? No. So we're talking to an American audience because they got a lot of groups over in the United States that they want to continue to exude freedom. They want to express freedom. And in turn, that means that they have to fight and protect for their freedom. They at least have to protect their freedom. How do you protect your freedom? By protecting the privacy of the person. That's how you protect your freedom. How do you protect the trust? You maintain its privacy. Now you see, we used to sit in a room. We sit in a room with these guys. They were like millionaires, billionaires. And we would sit in a room, and these guys would be sitting in the room, and they would have, they would say they're billionaires. So sure, they're billionaires, right? But why are they talking about X, Y, and Z LLC? And we used to sit there and look at these guys, and we knew they were lying from the beginning. You know, we say, oh, there's no way this guy's operating from a LLC with $1 billion. That's the easiest way to get sued out of an asset. If you own an LLC, you can get sued out of the assets because you own the assets indirectly. Whereas in certain style of trust, you don't own the assets, especially when you're talking irrevocable. But when we get into these conversations, we have to dig deep. We actually have to get around the experts. That's why you reach out to the vault. That's why you contact Trust Christian in the vault. The email is christian@trustchristian.com. We're doing a 30-day blitz right now for trustee training. We got a bunch of trustees. We're actually working on our next workshop. Looking for it. Actually, right now it'll most likely be at the end of August here. So just be on the lookout for the flyer here. We'll give trustees and people about 60 days to enroll in the program, so you can get to the workshop. Uh, but let's keep moving. How is the trust registered in the public if it's private? Where is it registered at? So we would sit in a room with these guys. They like, women too, millionaires, billionaires. And they would say, oh, I'm operating out of X, Y, and Z Real Estate LLC. We sit here and say, so you saying that you have all this money flowing through this entity, you're considered the member or you're considered the owner, or maybe you're not. But we know an LLC or C Corp is public. So how is it that you are supposed to be at a high level, but you're operating out of an LLC? Well, the thing about it that you didn't really want to know, because they ain't going to tell you, because they operating out of private trust. And they got an LLC that the trust owned. That's the facts. It's not unknown information. It's unknown to the unknowing. But when you sit in a room and you actually have a conversation with these guys, when you bring that up to them, they say, oh yeah, everything's owned by a trust. The LLC's a front. The C Corp was a front. That's the public. C Corps and LLCs came after trusts. So that's why they're utilizing those entities, because they wanted greater levels of asset protection. How do you get asset protection? Through separation. That's what they were applying. They were applying separation. So we was sitting in a room for years with these guys. It was like, there's no way this guy's a multi-billionaire and he's sitting here operating through a public entity solely. And we knew he wasn't. We knew she was. Say, well, where was the trust registered? It wasn't. They had an LLC. They had a C Corp. They held the real estate. They had a public entity. They didn't want you to think that they had a lot of money. Usually when you hear a trust, you usually think there's a lot of money involved. That's why they didn't do that. So these are the things that we would, as you go through the processes, as you sit around these individuals, families, you say, oh man, so the trust, their private trust wasn't registered. That was the family one. It wasn't registered. They had the family one managing assets. That's all. But somehow they used an LLC. Somehow they used the corp and the public. That's what's registered. Oh, okay. So when you're thinking about in the question, I'm going to go to Trust Christian in the Vault. I'm going through trustee training, and I'm still thinking, where's the trust registered? How's the trust registered in the public? How is that the case? How is it registered? The EIN does not mean it's registered. So we'll go a little bit deeper. We'll say, okay, we were mentioned already about the millionaires and billionaires. They sit in a room, they got a bunch of real estate. So they're holding a bunch of real estate. Okay, well, what company, what entity owns the real estate? Because on public record, they do report who owns the real estate. Was it their name? Was it the trust? Was it the LLC? Was it the C Corp? So this is where we saw a lot of them will have LLCs and C Corps. Not only would they have LLCs and C Corps, they would actually build credit on those entities, because usually in the private, they didn't want to register their private entities to get credit. You hear that? They didn't want their private trusts to get credit. It's not an accident. It's not a coinky dink. It's the facts. Because when you're talking about that private trust registration, if someone can see those things, they might assume that there's more than what meets the eye. Whereas everybody supposedly owns real estate through an LLC. Most people own real estate through some type of C Corp. Oh man, the family passed away. The family member passed away. They left all the real estate inside of a trust to the family. Okay. Now the family name is on public record owning assets. It's just the last name possibly. But the children aren't registered as owning the property. The family estate is. So when people want to, so when people want to uh, say, "Oh man, the property was registered in the family," that's true. But what happens when those individual family members get sued? They don't own the assets. They might be beneficiaries, they may not be beneficiaries, but they don't own them. That's where we are with this information, ladies and gentlemen. Is your trust registered in the public? See, when you come to the vault, we talk in private. We're not talking public. Of course, public trusts are registered in the public. How does a public trust get established? It has to go through the state so it can be a state created trust. Private trusts are not registered with the state. So we're going to address questions in the chat. We already got questions in the chat. Y'all can feel free to type questions in the chat. We'll be on here for some minutes, and we're going to go through some questions. We encourage questions, actually. Don't get too in your feelings about how we answer the question. Just know we've heard this question for years now, and just know that your question may have some things to it that we just have to dig deeper into. So one of the first questions we got already is having an EIN make your trust irrevocable? No, ladies and gentlemen, an employer identification number. If y'all want to go to the document right now, we can go to how do you get an EIN? If we go to we see in trust, everything's literal because the contract makes the law. It has to be literal. Up for interpretation. Hey, if you want to go gray areas, wait till the feds use the gray area on you or on the trust. But when it's spelled out black and white, there is no gray. Even though black and white make gray. Black and white is different than gray. So, is having an EIN make your trust irrevocable? Not at all. An EIN, what are you getting an EIN for? What are most people getting EINs for? Once again, does it say apply for an EIN or register for an EIN? They make the words clear, but the thing about it is people don't understand the language that they're speaking because the United States still has a high level of illiteracy. And people unfortunately don't comprehend. They can read, but comprehension is a part of reading. You have to comprehend and be able to interpret what you're reading. And not interpolate it, but interpret it. That means for the exact meaning. That means you go to the Black's Law Dictionary. That means you go to the legal dictionary. That means you go to the financial dictionary and you go get the literal meaning of the word. Registration is not application. Those are two different things. So we're addressing it for trustees and future trustees of your family estate, of your trust. First of all, if you're a U.S. citizen, isn't that a public person? Yeah. So if you have a trust, see how the question was, your trust, is that a public trust or a private trust? It might be registered if it's public. How did the EIN get obtained? Was it obtained by a public person? See, people used to knock our process or they would question our process over at the vault. But we're ironclad, baby. We don't have failures. That's why we're addressing the issue, which is registration. See, we make it very clear to our trustees, there is no registration. It's an application. They're different. So, let's continue moving on. We got more questions. Feel free to type the questions in, ladies and gentlemen. There's like a free consultation today, so feel free to type. Next question. Appreciate Melanie Thomas. Pseudo name or real name, doesn't matter. Appreciate you for tuning in. Could be, for all we know, this could be an agent setting us up. For all we know. It says, I thought I needed an EIN for the trust. I thought I needed an EIN for a trust I created after my mother died. For a trust I created after my mom died. Okay. Wells Fargo told me that it's not what you do. That's not what? Wells Fargo told me that's what you do when you die. Irrevocable as asset protection. First of all, how's Wells Fargo giving anybody legal advice? Let's go address these questions, ladies and gentlemen. Wells Fargo, we not. First of all, we're not claiming Wells Fargo. If anybody from Wells Fargo hear this, this is not a representation or a smite on that company's name. But we're aware that they are in a certain type of sector, financial services or otherwise. So this isn't financial advice or legal advice. This isn't an endorsement of the company. Once again, someone typed into the chat. We're addressing the question. Wells Fargo told me. Once again, if Wells Fargo told you something, was that legal advice and financial advice? You can always get more than one opinion. They say, oh, you need to get an EIN for the trust after your mother died. Okay. Once again, do you apply for an EIN or you register an EIN? Register for an EIN. You don't. Most people don't register. What are you going to register for? They apply for it. The IRS has a choice to give you one or not give you one from what we're aware of. Nowhere in there did the IRS say, oh, we're going to put it on public record. That's not the. If you're talking about the charities that we talk about, foundations, those are different. Those are public searched because guess what? The beneficiary is public. That's the public. The public is the beneficiary. Whereas in the private, who's the beneficiary? That's private. So why would think about it? Why would you register private trust? Excuse us. Why would you register private beneficiaries in the public? That means you're making people known so they can get taxable. You're making the beneficiaries known so they can be sued. Because that means they're receiving things, right? Isn't the beneficiary supposed to receive benefits? Yes. So why would you put them on public record about that? See, this is what trustee training provides. We have a whole trustee training library. When you enroll in trustee training, we have a trustee training library for trustees. You enroll, you get access to specific pieces of information. You get access to Trust Christian in the Vault and the resources that we provide to make sure that you're not in a position where you're considered and not knowing these informations about the fact that it's not registered in the public. Simple as that. Where else are you going? Even if you got the EIN, where else is it registered? Let's just say we stop there. Private trust, quote unquote, goes gets EIN to do, whatever it's going to do because there's many reasons why it applied. Where did it say it had to go register anywhere? Because people, after they get the EINs, they say, oh, well, where am I going to register the trust? Where do I register it? That's our question to you. You said you were going private. I thought the private goofball gurus were telling you that you could just stay private. Right. So why would you register it? That would make it public. That means people can search it publicly. It's not private if you can search it publicly. We're going to continue with these questions. Once again, if you're typing questions in the chat, just know we understand that there's broken communication, but do your best to type the question very clearly. It says, mother got an EIN for my stepfather when he died for the family estate. I guess. She died 4 years later before any probate stuff. Okay. Were the assets inside of the trust? Was the trust private? Did your mother obtain the EIN as a U.S. citizen? U.S. citizens are public people. This is the facts. We're not mad at it. It is what it is. But let's be honest. Let's be direct. See, in our private trust system, that's not how it operates. U.S. citizens, they have a different process than private people. You know, it's funny. We were watching something recently, and it's crazy because when you watch the news, this is why people gravitate to this private trust information. Is because when they get into it, they'll hear finally the public start catching terms. Oh, he's a private citizen. Oh, she's a private citizen. Hold on, what are you talking about? How they private citizens? How you gonna be a private citizen? I thought there were only public citizens, right? The public citizens are registered with their little social security numbers so they can get social security welfare money when they get ready to croak. But then the private citizens, do they use socials? Do the private trust, are they registered? No, they're not. Sure, this is to encourage you to do your research. This is encouraging you to reach out to the vault, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, the email you can reach out to is Christian at trustchristian.com. See, you got to be willing to invest in your private education. You got to be willing to invest in the information that's going to give you freedom. We remember we used to sit around private wealthy people. They say, oh man, freedom isn't free. We had to pay for our freedom. And you sitting over here wondering why isn't it given to you for free? And that's why people come on the line and they'll say, well, is your trust registered in the public? Why would a private trust be registered in the public? Because they didn't invest in the education. We're going to go ahead and continue because someone's typing into the chat. Feel free to type questions into the chat, ladies and gentlemen. While we're here, it's like a free consultation. Feel free to get it all out. Somebody, the same individual, Melanie Thomas. We're going to keep going along with this for individual. We're going to keep going with it. Probate court throughout the family trust. Well, why would they go into probate? Remember, if you die without a will, it's intestate. Intestate. That's a word. Intestate. So if you die without a will, you die intestate. You, or if a family member dies without a will, it's intestate. But if they die with a will, that sounds like probate. Right. It goes through probate. But let's continue along that thought. If probate court threw it out, threw a private family trust out, that means they have no jurisdiction over a private trust. One. Two, they only can administer wills because it's dealing with probate. And probate deals with a will, a directive. It doesn't deal with private family trust. It doesn't deal with private family estates. Because the private family estate has its own documentation. Remember, contract makes the law. It has its own law that it needs to be administered in a private capacity. Simple as that. But it says the mother adopted her son, made him a sibling. Now he's entitled to half. Sounds like a public situation. Doesn't sound like it's private. So now you can see that you got to pay for the information, the education, so you can put yourself in a position to not have that happen to you. The only reason that happened to you is because A, you didn't execute the information. The information for privacy was not executed in the proper capacity. That happens. Unfortunately. But that happens. So you're either going to choose to keep letting these situations happen. Y'all see this situation. This might, whether y'all know it or not, this situation that's typed into the chat right now is 8 out of 10 times in the United States. That's why 1% passes along wealth from one generation to the next. Because they're doing it properly. Whereas some families, they keep thinking, oh man, I'm going to just go get me a testamentary trust. Oh man, I'm going to just go get me a trust. I'm going to go get me a trust. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and pass along the assets. But did you get the EIN as a U.S. citizen? Or did you get the EIN as a private citizen? Ooh. Well, I don't know. Am I public or am I private? Which one is that? See, private citizens aren't registered. The public citizens are. That's why they have socials. Abnormal information, huh? Once again, we're going to continue answering these questions in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all can feel free to type questions into the chat. Question still goes in, or statement goes in. Probate court, ladies and gentlemen, to the person that's asking the questions, probate deals with wills, not a private trust. That's clear. Probate said the amendment wasn't valid because the changes were handwritten on a trust document. Now, does that make any sense? Whether y'all know it or not, y'all could do research on Aretha Franklin's estate. This was a great estate story that we've gone over with our trustees and trustee training. Aretha Franklin's estate took over 10 years to literally gather and administer and dissolve. Why? Because it literally was reported by multiple family members. They had multiple documents. They even said she had her will on toilet paper. Y'all don't want to hear that. The average individual doesn't want to hear that. They don't want to know that Aretha Franklin supposedly wrote her will on a piece of toilet paper. But then we're going to go into probate court and try to get it administered properly. Probate court. Because there was a will on toilet paper. Pieces of paper. Handwritten. You think it really matters if it's handwritten or if it's typed out? If you think that, how is it that private trust, which contract makes the law, still stands? Private trust, contract, makes the law. Whereas in the public, it's being administered by public rules and regulations. And those rules and regulations are changing quite often, actually. We're just reading the comments in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. So just give us a second. Give us a second. Is the fine line of application of the application? Okay. Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we just wanted to address this question very briefly. I'm sure we answered it and addressed it very briefly, very at the beginning of this episode. Hit the like and the subscribe. The subscription is going to allow you to get the pop-up episodes. So hit the notifications when we do the pop-up episodes. And the like is just to continue to keep boosting the channel and the algorithm so we can continue giving people to listen to information, because people in trust deal with people in trust. We have so many people come to the phone and say, oh man, I don't have anybody I could trust. Well, you're not going to make it in the trust sector if you don't have people you can trust. That's a fact. It's unfortunate. If you live in a world where you can't trust people, you're not going to deal well in trust. Because all of us that are in trust, we're in the same sector. We're all sitting in the same room. High net worth investors, yeah, we might tell you that we're using LLCs and C Corps for real estate, but best believe it's held in private. The LLCs and C Corps are held in private. It's that simple. But how would you know that if you're not in the environment? Because you don't trust people. You don't know if I pay some money, I don't know if I'm gonna get a return on my investment. I don't know if this is what they say. They really don't say that they're investing money. They say they're spending money. And that's what consumers do. That's what public people do. Private people are investing in their education and their private family estates at all time. Everything's a write-off. Why? Because it's an investment in the family for future generations. That's an investment. Education is an investment. Food is an investment. Travel is an investment. Business is an investment. And guess what? We write off our losses. When you listen to the public, these banks recently say, oh, we had unrealized gains. What the heck is an unrealized gain? That sounds like private talk. The banks went under supposedly, right? From unrealized gains. We were supposed to get the money, but we didn't. So we can write it off because it's an unrealized gain. That's how you know the trust that they're operating in. They're not registered in the public. When those banks went under recently, you think those CEOs and people on the board didn't get a bonus? The people that started those banks, you think they started the government didn't start SVB. The government didn't start Silicon Valley. The government didn't start First Republic. And you think the CEOs didn't get a bonus before it went under? Once again, feel free to do your research. How is a private trust registered in the public? It's not. That's it. Is it unfortunate? It is what it is. The public ones are registered. Why? Because they have public laws written in them. The private ones don't. Contract makes the law. That's the difference. Feel free to reach out. Christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, the email that you can go through Trustee Training, prepare for the next workshop, and make sure that you never worry about the whole scenario that's inside of the chat right now. Feel free to reach out, Christian@trustchristian.com. We get people all the time to say, oh, I got a trust, but isn't it registered in the public? How's it registered in the public? Because it has an EIN? Not at all. You think somebody could just call the IRS and say, "Hey, we need the EIN number, or we need to even know if there's a number, if there's a trust for, or if there's a trust alive or operating." You think the IRS just gives that information away? They're a private organization. Who are you? Public? And the only way you can get that information is if you're in the private for that private situation. They don't just give out information publicly. And if they do, it's because it's supposed to be for the public. So when you talk about public entities or you talk about charity, they're set up for the public. So the information is privy to the public, but the private ones are not. It's that simple. Look forward to hearing from you all. Appreciate Melanie Thomas for typing into the chat. Appreciate you. Thank you. You all enjoy the rest of your day or night wherever you are. Peace and joy. Email is christian@trustchristian.com. For trustee training, christian@trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you.